Good evening, everyone. We're coming back to go over a little bit more of the law that we were speaking about. And this evening, we have our friend back with us, Brother Perry, is going to be joining in with us tonight as we talk about some of the law, picking up where we left off last night with Kill and Joshua. Brother Perry, how you doing, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Yes, we're glad to be able to able to go over this. I've gotten some information and contacts, a few phone calls, and some text messages with a few questions because many of the members are actually saying that they were not aware that the members had the power and the authority in the organization because no one has ever taught them. No one has even told them. There's a lot of communication and conversation regarding the idea and the notion that the council the entire time knew that they did not have the authority to be doing the things that they're doing. Are you aware of this, Brother Perry, that the members did have the power and the authority this whole time to either take a stand or to say what they wanted or not wanted, or to stand up and not allow the council or even the bishop to do what it is that they're doing? You were aware of this, yes or no?
Well, I'm aware of it from, working with CBOs, community-based organizations. However, I'm also aware, like in the House of Prayer, as a member, you are kind of like pumped into not speaking up.
That's pretty accurate. Unfortunately, we kind of been put into a corner.
Right.
And would you agree with that assessment that I made, that the members have been bullied into thinking that they don't have any power to do anything?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And unfortunately, that's where we are. The good news is that you're now being made aware,
Right.
and don't have to take it anymore. And it's not something where we're trying to cause people to become disrespectful. We're not trying to cause anybody to become belligerent, disrespectful, angry, mad. No, 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 no. There is a reason. This thing right here, there's a reason why this is a writing instrument. For the longest time, it's been referred to as an instrument. Whether it's a pencil, whether it's even a feather that used to be dipped inside of a small jar of ink. There's a reason why this phrase is absolutely true, and that is the pen is mightier than the sword.
That's a fact.
You want to expound on that, Brother Perry?
Well, it's just the fact that once something is dipped and documented, it is, you can't kick against it. I mean, you can kick against it, but you're kicking against a prick. It's dipped and documented. So, you can say whatever you want to say, but for the person or organization that documents facts, they're supposed to stand on those facts, that the things that they've documented. And so it don't mind, gun or sword. If it's written down, you can't kick against it.
It's gonna stand. It's gonna stand. When you walk out the room, You can threaten your boss. You can threaten your partner. You can threaten the guy at the block on the end of the block. Threaten, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that, or the other. Whether you have a sword, the penny is mightier than a sword, because back in the day they didn't have guns, but they had iron. And until people were afforded guns after they received this latest and greatest invention. But the pen did a whole lot more damage to an individual. With the stroke of a pen, your freedoms can be taken. With the stroke of a pen, your liberty can be taken. The stroke of a pen, your money can be taken. Why do you think judges on the bench in the court, they don't wear holsters and belts that hold weapons? No, that's for the bailiff. Everybody knows when you go into a courtroom, the bailiff is not the one that has the power, but they have a gun. The one with the power, they have a pen. And as soon as they make a, a judgment or decision, a ruling, you see them start writing on a piece of paper.
That's it.
And they can take everything you got with the stroke of that pen. Now, why are we talking about that? Because the members of our organization has not yet come into the understanding that the authority, according to the law of the land, is in whatever has been written, not the things that have been said. I can say anything. Anybody can say anything. But let's just imagine one day I don't know, go into a courtroom and you're trying to prove your case. And you say, well, I know that individual, let's say a plaintiff, I know he can't do what he said he can do. And the defendant is the one that the plaintiff is doing things towards. Well, the judge is going to ask one simple question. Well, what does your law say? We can't go in there saying, well, again, y'all know I don't say the D word. I use the word Addie. We can't go into court saying, well, Addie said that you need to do this, that, and the other. Addie told me that I can do this. Addie said, don't worry about it. Just tell them that Addie said so. You go into a courtroom telling a judge what Addie said, and it's not backed up in writing. That judge is going to look at you and say, I'm sorry, Mr. or Mrs. whatever. We don't care what Addie said. We care what that law says.
Right.
And that's what's going to hold. So a courtroom is going to enforce not what Addie said. They're going to enforce what the law say. And if we are so adamant about sticking to what Addie said, then you just might end up being greatly disappointed, because what that judge said is going to have a whole lot more weight than what Addie said, because that judge, they have a pen. And that one stroke, that judge is going to define what your future might look like, even if you trust in or lean on Addie. Here's your problem. God, he keeps books too. And in the courtrooms of heaven, there's things being written. That's why when we turn to the book of Matthew, the 12th chapter and the 36th verse, that tells us that what things soever we say, every idle word that a man says, it will be held against him. or it will speak for him. In fact, it says it this way. Let me grab my Bible. I got my Bible. And Matthew 12:36. Matthew 12:36. But I say, Jesus, I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned. What Jesus just said is pretty much the foundation of what the popo has to tell you if they're getting or you're getting arrested. They say you have the right to remain silent. And then they go on to warn you that anything you say, everything, anything you say can, and not just can, but will be used against you. What was that, Brother Perry?
Like you said, will, can, and will. Not might, will.
Yes, sir, absolutely. Anything you say can and will be used not for you, but against you in the court of law. And there's a word in that passage of scripture that we need to really focus in on, and that word is judgment. Because the only place you're going to receive a judgment is in a court. And the one authorized to render a judgment is not the bailiff, not the one with the pew-pew, but it's the one with the pen. So we need to understand that your power and your authority is in what's in black and white. I'll put it like this. Jesus told the disciples, Matthew 28:18-19, all power has been given to me in heaven and in earth. Now, he said that because he's about to tell them to do something that no one has ever been directed to do before in all of the nation of Israel. Go ye therefore into the world and teach all nations what things soever you have heard of me. And then he went on to say, lo, I am with you always. Now, it's important for us to understand, because where did we get that from in 2025? How did we know that Jesus said those words? Because we read what somebody actually wrote. So what's going to be held against us when we go to judgment? The same thing Jesus said. Not one jot or tittle of the word is going to pass away. Heaven and earth is going to pass, but not one jot or tittle of the word. And that's what we're referring to you all. We're directing your attention to the law of the house of prayer so that you will understand what the leaders are supposed to be held to. The leaders are supposed to be held to the law. So far, up until these videos, our leaders has not held themselves to the law. And Brother Perry, when a leader, a manager, a supervisor, a district manager, a director, regional director, a CEO, board of directors, when any of those individuals do not hold themselves to the letter of the law, Brother Perry, what might happen to them?
Replacement. Removal.
Replacement or removal. And we were talking about in the law, our Constitution, that the Constitution says, remember, Article 5, Section 9, and under Section 9, it says the General Assembly, made up of the members, shall have on 2/3 let me go back. This is the new Constitution. We're not going by the new Constitution because this Constitution is null and void. This is an illegal Constitution because it was not set in order according to the consent or the will or the approval of the General Assembly. So I was referring last night to the Constitution of 2009. Now, I know because I've done my research that this Constitution is also an illegal Constitution, meaning when the facts come forward, it will be proven without a shadow of a doubt that this Constitution also is null and void, meaning no one in the entire organization can hold you accountable to the rules set forth in this Constitution. So then the question is, why are we reading it? Because each time the Constitution was illegally amended by leaders in a back room behind the backs of the organization without the knowledge or the consent of the people, each time that happened, they would tweak it and change just a little bit of the Constitution to take a little bit more power from the people and give it to themselves. So we have a foundation that we can go by in the older Constitution rather than the new one. I'm simply showing you that there's been changes in this old Constitution, which even though it's null and void because it's not legal, we see changes from the old one to the new one where they're taking a little bit more power from the people. So in order to find out the original Constitution before it was illegally changed by leaders in a back room somewhere by using what they cunningly crafted as a Constitution Revision Committee. Remember that term, Constitution Revision Committee. They were used to not just look at things that should be changed. They were used to suggest things that should be changed. And from those suggestions, they came up with a list that they referred to as proposals. But am I correct, Brother Perry? Is that how the proposal process works?
Well, I can't give you in depth. I've never been, that deep in it to where, well, repeat it how you said it again.
Does the proposal process work by allowing the leader to select a few people to let him know what they would like to tweak to benefit his agenda? Or does the proposal process work by members of the organization writing in ideas and suggestions and sending it in so that they can go out to the local congregations for ideas that they would like to see changes in the Constitution? Does it go through the people or does the proposal process go through the leaders?
Well, initially, from what I recall, how we used to do it was the people, if you have an idea or something, then you submit it well before Memorial Day, well before. You have to submit it. And then once you submit it to them, they send it out to each house.
Right.
For the houses to discuss it. Also, at the same time, though, that bullying was happening because there was how do I say this? There's like an understanding amongst the people that the only time changes happen is when the leader wants changes to happen.
Right.
So you can propose whatever you want to propose. If the leader doesn't want it to happen, it's not going to happen.
That's a very, very powerful point that he just made. That the leaders have, now he used the term bullied. I'm going to explain how the bullying happened. Let's say we're now in the General Assembly, and it's that time of the General Assembly for the people to nominate and elect a General Assembly secretary. Remember, that's the most powerful position in the General Assembly. Their job pretty much is likened unto the Speaker of the House, the House being the Senate. Wait a minute. No, I'm sorry. The Majority Leader. The Majority Leader is the individual who sits over the Senate. Now you have two parties, two groups of people in the Senate, and whichever one of those have more elected by the people in the Senate, then they have the majority. So they're going to pick somebody out of their group to be somewhat the head over the Senate. Their job is not to run anything. Their job is just to make sure that everything that they do in the Senate is in accordance with the law. Here, the General Assembly Secretary is the one who oversees the General Assembly. Their job is to make sure that the General Assembly is ran in accordance with the Constitution. All business contained in the General Assembly is referring to the Constitution. So when it's time to nominate a General Assembly Secretary, what we're accustomed to is the leader will say, okay, you know what? I've been happy with the actions and the service provided for the current General Assembly Secretary. I've been very well pleased with him, and I'm proud of what he's done. And I want to, first of all, let us clap our hands for the current General Assembly Secretary. Now, this is coming from Addie, who happens to be in the General Assembly. And then he'll give a few more words. But what is the feeling and the impression being put upon the people? That he wants him. He likes him. And then the people, when he gets done talking, somebody will come up, typically from the General Council. And they will nominate that General Assembly Secretary to serve in that capacity for another year. And then the leader might say, anybody else? Nobody? Nobody? Nobody. They're only doing that to make it look like we're being fair here. But the reality is the people are being intimidated. And that's why he used that word bullying. Because Addie knows that he's not supposed to be doing what he's doing. But the people don't know that. So they're taking advantage of the people's lack of knowledge pertaining to the orders of the General Assembly. And that's the bullying. This is what he was just talking about. So Brother Perry is saying the law is not meant to work that way. There's this impression that the people have that whatever he wants, he's going to get. But the law tells us in Section 9 that the people, they are the ones who try and remove bishops. Somebody asked this question. When you were putting the congregation together, was that something that you were aware of, Brother Perry, that the people had the authority and the power to remove the bishop for cause?
Well, yeah, in the General Assembly, that's when it could happen. Otherwise, that he would be in office for the duration of his life.
And the people that you were bringing into the organization, were they made aware that you have the power to remove a leader if y'all find fault in him?
The way that I used to do it was, once we got the proposals, I'd have a house meeting. And in the house meeting, of course, we will review the proposals. But before reviewing the proposals, we would discuss, those things of the law pertaining to the General Assembly, so that the people who ended up being delegates could have an understanding of what the book says about, where you're going. You're going somewhere that's very official. I wouldn't talk to them about, for example, well, what Daddy says is what goes. I wouldn't dare do that. But from being someone from the inside, that was something that, I knew. Something that, I'm not going to make a proposal because it don't matter what I say.
Mm-hmm.
But as I informed my membership, because they were, brand new people. I didn't have members that came from another state or anything like that. These were people that I had drawn into the house of prayer. So I had to let them know, raw, clear, what was expected of them, what was the, culture of it, the official culture of it. I had to let them know things like that.
Now, he said something that's very important for us to understand. And I believe that most people who just heard him missed it. You said that you wouldn't bother writing a proposal, correct?
No way.
Why is it that you would never bother writing a proposal? Now, he's the one bringing members in. He's the one considered the pastor. And as a pastor, he just said he would never consider writing a proposal. Why is that?
Well, one thing, I was very ambitious at the time, and I felt like if I make a proposal, then that's like going against the grain. And I was ambitious. I wanted to get somewhere. I wanted to, get higher. I wanted to get deeper. And by doing that, that would be going against me.
Now, what he's saying, pay attention. As a pastor, he said he's ambitious. What that meant was he wants to go further in the organization.
Absolutely.
Right? So for young men becoming elders, becoming youth pastors or assistant youth pastors, becoming pastors, you want to move up in the organization because, of course, your desire is to help the Lord with this work in the organization, turning more and more people to him. So being ambitious, we have to understand you don't go against the grain, you go with the grain. The grain meaning the will of the leader. If you ever look like you're going against what the leader wants, you can pretty much forget about going further in the organization. Is that statement true that I just said, Brother?
That's a fact, and I hope people gather the fear that comes along with it, because at just a word, you could be taken out of your position. And like for myself, I moved to a city that didn't have a house of prayer, or the organization was not there. And if you remove me, it's like being out on an island by yourself. Even without being removed, it's like being out on an island by yourself. But it's I was there for a purpose, and to feel like I can do the wrong thing, and my whole purpose. It was my purpose for going to college. It was my purpose for where I live. It was my purpose for everything. The woman that I married, everything. And then those things were were being risked.
When you say your purpose for all those things, what were you referring to as your purpose?
Well, I wanted to be a pastor, but not just have the title of pastor. I went to college to be an educator because I wanted to be the best teacher I could possibly be, because I thought that was important as a pastor, to be able to educate, to be able to reach anybody. I wanted to be the best counselor I could possibly be. and not just for one building. I wanted my desire. I saw 3 houses of prayer or 3, buildings in that one city, and I saw, I have visions of others going up Interstate 5, going up into Oregon, and in other places. I felt like I could cause a positive effect for the organization if I, enhanced myself, improved myself, So I was just always driven to do as much as I could like that.
Now, that's also important because what he just said is he took it upon himself to go to school, to take courses, even to college. Now, all of these classes and these courses and these college classes that you took, even en route to receiving degrees in certain fields, whether it's counseling, whether it's sociology, whether it's psychology, in order to benefit his job, his title, his actions as a pastor in reaching people and serving the community, his goal that drove him to go to school and take these classes, that was to benefit the organization.
Absolutely.
And what he said was his everything was built around that. Is that the purpose that you're speaking of?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
His marriage, his classes, his whether job or what have you. He just said it felt like he's on an island by himself alone in a city where there's no house of prayer. There's no house of prayer members. There's nobody who understands the house of prayer lingo, right?
Right.
And when it came to these classes, did you get assistance paying for these classes?
That question was going. No assistance paying for the class. I didn't even get assistance to ride the bus to school or anything.
Nothing.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
And what about your living expenses?
Nothing.
Food, transportation. Well, that's the bus. He didn't get even a monthly bus pass. Did the chairman offer any services at all to assist you while you're in the city by yourself to bring people into the organization and establish another house of prayer?
None other than moral support. There is no assistance. There's nothing.
This is extremely, extremely important for everybody to understand. And let me just say this as well. Everything we're doing, this is for educational purposes. It is to educate the members as to what happens or the events that individuals either have gone through, currently are going through, or should expect to go through if you ever intend on establishing one of the houses of prayers in a city where there is none. You can pretty much expect, according to precedents, the individuals that have gone there and done it prior to your desire to, they didn't get assistance in any way, shape, or form. Is that an accurate and true statement?
That is. And I believe the organization, they feel like, well, we're going to pay for your building. We're going to buy your building. That they think that is assistance or something like that. But it absolutely isn't. For me, I was grateful and all, but I'm developing this. I was on a green field, so I couldn't do that behind 4 walls. I had to be out on the street. I had to be out in the community. But once you have a building, there's an expectation that you're going to be in those 4 walls. That was more of a hindrance than anything, honestly.
Again, what else? What he just said is another issue. I won't call them problems. I call them issues, because the pastors doing all of this work, putting themselves on the line. This is not a fly-by-night operation.
Oh
This is not a 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock rock type situation. You're not a few weeks' time invested. How many years did it take for you to get the group of people that you had going and the momentum to come in and ready to join the house of prayer? How long did that take?
Well, everybody was different. Overall, I was working there for 10 years.
10 years.
And I got up to about 70 members.
10 years. 70 members.
Yeah.
No assistance. 10 years. 365 days. Times 10. 3,650 days. One night in a hotel room might cost you $100+. One night in a hotel room. 3,650 days. No assistance.
Nothing.
From an organization that is worth, what would you say? This organization, we're struggling, right? We're just trying to get by, right?
I have absolutely no way to be able to monetize it to say a number, but what I can tell you is what I've always been told since I was a child, or not a child, well, since the 90s. I was still a child pretty much. But the buildings, the leader was renovating the entire organization, and the way that it was told to me is he's not using the money that we're bringing in. He's still using the interest from the 60s and before.
Right. In fact, I heard for myself him say this in, I believe it was Newport News, Virginia, that we're spending money that was raised in the Founders Day.
Right.
Now, what year was it that he passed?
1960.
60. 60. We're looking at 85 years later.
1960.
January 1960. We're 85 years later, and the leader, well, not 85, the former bishop had 15 years, so let's say 70. So between, and he had 17, so between 53 and 70 years after the founder passed, 53 to 70 years later, we're still spending money that was raised back then. So nobody could come up with a bus pass for a pastor. A bus pass. I know of organizations that actually purchase bicycles for their elders to ride around to missionary.
Right.
At least they get a bike. In fact,
And a helmet.
and a helmet and a water bottle. In fact, for those groups of men, they have bikes whenever they're out, but they also get them cars, very nice cars, for when they're having group activity. It looks like they're doing something right, because here, instead of us getting cars or bikes or bus passes, we get none of those things. But I believe this leader just got his second Maybach.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was told that it's custom made. Now,
Wow.
I don't know that to be true. I don't know. But I do know that there's one Maybach. There may be two. In fact, the first house of prayer that we came up in, he actually took the Maybach to that house of prayer. They may have 5 members currently. If they get a full house on Sunday, there might be 10 to come out. And if the leader rolls up in a Maybach, that really does say something to those individuals, where there's no assistance and no anything being offered to help them. They have to take care of that property. They have to take care of everything in the building. And this is where the problems that he just spoke of comes in. Because now that you have the building, That's when the pressure comes in.
And to add to that, not only are there's no assistance to the pastors, they have these beautiful buildings, and when you're bringing in new members, there is no assistance for these people who often need help. When you got this beautiful building, you can't help me with a little gas money, or you can't help me, pay this bill. I can pay you back even, No, we have nothing for you.
Yeah. That is, in fact, what he just said. Matter of fact, I'm going to go back a little bit, talking about him going to school and paying out of his pocket to take classes that's going to benefit his pastoralship and his ministry in the community. He's going into his pocket to do things that's going to benefit the organization of which he serves. Not only is he not getting assistance for his living expenses for 10 years in a city that there is no house of prayer so that he can get one there established, but while he's there going to school, he's paying for even more out of his pocket for that bill. There was another pastor who took classes and went to a theological seminary. And when it was discovered that he went to theological seminary, if I'm not mistaken, it was a theological seminary or theology school. But word got back to the group of men at the front, and it ended up in a court case inside the organization. He was brought up and questioned. Long story short, this young man, who happened to have had the title of apostle, I think, but he was questioned and he was relieved from his position because he went to a theological seminary. Are you familiar with this case?
That's my uncle.
Wow, I didn't even know that. Do you mind expounding on that?
I can't.
Okay.
I don't know it in detail, but I do know like what you just shared. And he was an evangelist. I mean, if we're talking, because I believe that there are two. I don't know about coming up in cases, but I believe that there are two. One of them, who was originally from Virginia and was in New York as a pastor for a while,
right,
became an evangelist, and that happened to him. And the other one, I think he's from up north somewhere, and he did the same thing. I don't know about any court cases or anything. I just know my uncle did that, and very, very powerful evangelist, very popular pastor. Everyone loved him. But when they found out he went to school, graduated, completed everything, yeah, they got rid of him.
And were you aware of whether or not he received assistance to go to school? It's a sad, and I chuckle because we already know the answer. If they got rid of him for going to school.
What kind of question is that?
Right. If they got rid of him for going to school, did they give him assistance to go to school? Of course, absolutely not. And we have a scholarship program.
Enough to get a book.
Yeah, they don't give it. There's so many things that's being done to give the impression that the organization is doing things. The reality, however, and this is why we're talking about this. This is why I wanted to do what I'm doing, is to let the members of the organization know who we always, I did it too, for the longest time, boasted and bragged. We have this, we have that. We have this? We are paying rent to live in property that we own.
Right.
How do you explain that one?
Right.
We are paying for seats for buses that we are riding, but we own them. When the leaders buy these buses, it's beyond my understanding that they slap their names on the buses as if this is their personal business. It's not a charter line. even though it is a charter line. And when we understand what I just said, it should make us upset. Because a charter line is something like the buses. I won't say any names. I'm not advertising or marketing anyone. But there's one that was famous that had a dog on the side, right? That's a charter line. They make their money by selling seats on their buses to the general public. It is a for-profit business. We are a nonprofit organization. However, we're profiting from seats being sold on those buses, our buses, just like the company that has dog on the side.
Right.
Except we're selling our seats to the members of the organization.
To often to go to just another city to support the organization in that city.
You can't make this stuff up. And the money that was used to purchase those buses, did that come out of the leader's pocket? No. That came out of the organization's account, making that organizational property. So why is the leader's name on it? Is he advertising the organization, or is he advertising self? Now, that brings us to another problem, because if his name is on the bus and he's using that property to market for himself, and the seats are being sold each time the members ride it, well then, if his name is on it, are the funds going towards him, or are the funds going towards the organization? This is why I said these are all questions that somebody needs to answer. And if you all and myself, Brother Perry included, and all these other individuals do not hold individuals who's in these leadership roles accountable, this is where we end up. Where you are cheering for the man up front. You're cheering while he's taking money out of your pocket. You know, I don't mind. I'm a hugger. I embrace people. Hello, how you doing? But if I embrace you and I feel you digging in my back pocket and taking my wallet, well, we're going to have a problem. What are you doing?
Right.
This is an embrace. So what Brother Perry is describing, we should not have this issue. There was another pastor. He knows who he is. You know who you are. And I lift this young man up because he did the same thing Brother Perry did, and went out to a place. Incidentally, this city already had a house of prayer there. But he went because not he was asked, he was sent there. And he did not have any assistance. No help for housing, cost of living expenses, nothing. But he went. And this young man was sleeping inside the beautiful, brand new edifice. But a phone call came from the leader telling the chairman to put him out, running up my water bill, running up my electricity, using my utilities. Put him out. But the man is there doing a service for the organization. And then when men like Brother Perry, others, you heard his testimony talking about Joshua Edwards, when he was doing the same thing in another city. What was that, Lincoln?
Yes.
Lincoln, California, and bringing people in. What happens is once a building is built, we now have a brand new edifice. All of a sudden, they come in to seize control of everything and all activity. And now that pastor is confined to doing things that satisfy the chairman, the general counsel, and the bishop. Even though none of them know any of those members that were brought in by none of them.
Right.
Yes, sir. You about to say something?
No, I was just agreeing with what you said. They don't know them. They don't know their families. They don't know their history. They don't know anything about it or the city, the culture of the city, anything.
And he was there for 10 years, bringing 70 people in, get a building built. Now we have another additional congregation that's added to the roster of locations. And now we need to make sure that you're doing everything right. This makes what kind of sense? You're now going to be held to our standard.
Right.
How long after that the edifice was built were you the pastor before you were removed?
2 years, I think. 2 or 3 years.
2 or 3 years. And you were removed because of how many violations that you had committed, according to the law?
One violation. They called it a slush fund.
A slush fund.
Slush fund. Because I had finances documented in the back of the book to be able to use for expenses that were otherwise coming out of my pocket. From the front of the book or the church record book, from that church account, there's stipulations on what you can purchase, what you can, take care of from there. But there's so much more that goes into making the house, the organization function. So I was tired of being broke, coming out of my pocket. I had to raise money. So we documented that in the back of the book. And, we were able to use that money for other stuff. And then at the end of the fiscal year, we transferred the balance to the front of the book. That's all really on record. Just transferred the balance to the front of the book. It was already in the bank, And they said I had a slush fund recommended be removed.
Now, this is a huge problem because did you have 1 or 2 bank accounts for the house that you pastored?
1.
That's another problem. And see, this is what I mean when I say the members of the House of Prayer has absolutely zero idea what's going on.
Right.
You're literally, all of the members are literally being used as cattle. That's all. You're herded. And how many of you, think about this, how many cows understand what's going on when they're herded with thousands of other cows and they're making their way to a slaughterhouse? How many of those cows are sad? How many of those cows are angry? How many of those cows are trying to talk the other cows into getting up out of here and running? Y'all don't know what's going on. Not one cow, because they don't know what's about to happen. They've been herded from other farms from all over the place, and they don't know what they're going to be used for. If the cattle knew what they were going to be used for, then they would be making a break for it. It's going to cost you your everything, your lives. This is the epitome of what's going on. The members are being herded in so that every effort being taken is to get finances out of you. And if we don't believe that, I'm going to make that point crystal clear in a few more minutes. I'm going to come right back to this point, talking about herding cattle and continuing with Brother Perry's testimony. Give us a few minutes and we'll be right back.